Hello and welcome back to Belmont Bunch, the 2023-2024 season. Um, we have Islanders stuff to talk about. We're going to preview the season, talk about how excited we are, pick where they're going to finish. Then we're going to talk about the rest of the league to finish off the podcast and talk about, I guess, what we have coming this year as well. So first off, we're going to start it with our excitement level coming into the season out of 10, because that's how our brains work, is like, I need a number. So Sterling, can you start us off on what's your excitement level for this season?
Yeah, it's pretty much 10 out of 10, maybe 9 out of 10 for me. The primary logo is back at center ice this year, so that's super exciting. But last year was a very confusing year for determining the trajectory of the team. We talked about rebuilding, maybe trading Brock Nelson, and then we signed Bo Horvat. After a first round exit, it's been quite the summer for me, at least, thinking about what the future of the team is. And you know what? We're about to find out next week. So I really couldn't be more excited. There's no Nickelodeon night this year, which is kind of sad. So maybe that's why it's 9 out of 10. But yeah.
All right, Sarah, you want to go?
Sure. Things are gonna get cynical. My excitement level is probably a 9 out of 10, only because I just feel like it was pretty quiet in terms of like uh trades and just regular goings on during the off season, like a lot of unknowns as well. But you know, I'm trying to stay optimistic, so that's where the 9 comes from.
All right, yeah, I'm 10 out of 10. And if you're anything less than a 10 out of 10, you're not a real Islanders fan. So
Wow.
you got to always believe.
Gatekeep them.
Yeah, you got to always believe. I am the realest Islanders fan that exists. I said 10 out of 10, but it's really a 10.5 out of 10.
Mm.
Not quite an 11. That would be ridiculous. And so my general feelings are we made the playoffs. We squeaked into the playoffs last year. As we all know, anything can happen in the playoffs. Florida, who got in behind us in the playoffs, made it to the Stanley Cup final last year. So, I mean, I think Sterling, as a resident Panthers fan, as well as Islanders fan, is, like, I think you discounted them, earlier on than maybe everybody did. So yeah, I'm super optimistic, and and we'll get into more stuff later, but I'm super optimistic.
Well, I'm glad that I put myself last, because I thought I was going to be the optimist. I had a 7 out of 10. You guys, so the reason for the 7, which is, it's funny because from what I've seen from other fans, like, it's probably more towards like a 5 or a lower. And I think the reason that I have a 7 is I'm a little bit more optimistic than them, because I think having a full season of Horvat and Engvall, and Horvat playing with Barzal, and Barzal hopefully staying healthy, could be really big for us. And I know it's the preseason, but I was at the Ranger game at UBS, and I saw the potential of what they could do if they get the lines rolling, and I saw chemistry between Horvat and Barzal, and Horvat looked a little bit more confident. So excited by that. I guess where it comes down from you guys a little bit is knowing that because they're very locked in to their contracts, and they're very locked into having to win right this instant. If they're not good, it's going to get ugly in terms of like outlook for the team. They have a lot of guys that are a little bit older and are here for the long haul. And there are some contracts that they signed this offseason that are very long, probably longer than they should have been. And so I feel like they need to play really well out of the gate to alleviate those worries. Like the contract like Varley, a little bit long, 4 years. Engvall, I'm not worried about because he's young and he looked really good with that line last year. And I think Mayfield is the one that everybody's like, oh boy, 7 years. Not this. I mean, like, he's still in his prime, but for how much longer? And 7 years is a lot.
And then I think the other long contract that everybody's happy about is that we signed Sorokin for 8 years.
Yeah. And if the cap is supposed to, there's a rumor today. Well, not a rumor. It's Elliot Friedman, so you would think it's pretty real. That the cap's going to go up to like 88 million, which would mean all those contracts are better value.
Mm-hmm.
So we will see. I think this, the vibes will be very quickly amazing or terrible, as is the Islanders fan base. Like that's just par for the course.
All right, so then why don't we start with, we can either start with who's primed for a breakout this season or who's in the hot seat. So which one do you guys want to do first?
I think we start with hot seat and finish on breakout because it's more positive to
All
finish.
right, Tom, tell us, start with, we'll just kind of go around, just like say who we think on the hot seat, and we'll just go back and forth.
Yeah, so I have one player definitely on the hot seat, and the other one is like sort of, even though it doesn't really matter. Wallstrom, and I feel like that's like the obvious answer to this offseason. He's been practicing a little bit with the first line. It's a big year for him because he's got to show something. He just got that very small extension. And he's got some guys, fighting him for playing time. Fashing showed out pretty well last year. Holmstrom is, a prospect. He's still getting there. Gauthier really worked his butt off in the preseason. So, none of those guys have the pedigree of Oliver Wahlstrom, taken, 11th overall. But, he's got guys that were producing a little bit last year. Fashing mostly. But some guys that are working hard to nip at his heel. So big year for him. He needs to score. If he plays on the first line, like you would hope 20 goals or more. You think he's capable of that because he's had some decent years. I don't think he's ever topped like 15 goals.
Well, that's and something Sterling I know might know a bit more about, but like his ice time has always been variable, and it's either because of injuries or last year, was injured for a little while, he's injured for a while last year, and but then the year before that he wasn't playing every game and stuff. So I don't know. I definitely agree, but I think my concern is, will he still stay healthy enough? I think he'll play well enough. I don't think I'm optimistic about that, but I don't know. What do you think, Sterling?
Here's my biggest concern, honestly, about him. And he's my favorite player, so I'm going to have an optimistic view. But I see a lot of argument about, he didn't really get the chance to play with Barzal or in a top line position. And like, just based off my recollection from last season, I don't know if that's the case. I feel like he did get ample time with Matt Barzal last year. Granted, there was still like Josh Bailey on the other side, but still, so that is a little worrying for me. I think the key for him this season is going to be special teams time. He really needs to play on the power play. That's how he's gotten most of his goals. And something I found really interesting from the preseason was that I thought all summer, like, oh, it's obvious he should be playing, the Ovechkin position. But they've been playing him down low. And there's this like new play they're testing out a bunch, which is Barzal on the half boards. They're feeding it to Wahlstrom, who's sitting by the goal line. And then just a one-touch pass to Horvat in the slot, and he gets a one-timer off. Now, he hasn't scored on that yet, but they've had maybe 4 grade A chances from that. So there might be something there, and I would like to see him get to play with those two a bit more.
Yeah,
so yeah, you don't think it's you're not buying into the ice time thing, even though you only played 35 games last season.
It's true. The time on ice, I agree, is still not up to where it should be. But when people say he doesn't play with the right people, he played with Barzal a bunch.
I see what you're saying. Yeah.
I think also with him, like ice time, definitely he averages for his career 12 minutes of ice time a game, which is not a lot. It's tough. It's like a chicken or the egg thing. Like, do you put him on the first line because you need him to produce? Or is that a bad look because like you're forcing it and he like needs to earn it. So I don't know. Like I think for now, I like him starting the year on that line and giving it a go because he could benefit from what looks like some good chemistry between Horvat and Barzal. Um, man, if he can't get it to work from there, I'm a little bit worried because that feels like a really really good spot for him to succeed, even if it's on his off wing for now. I was encouraged in the preseason game I went to that Lee and Pajot combined for a goal since they might start the year playing together. So I will say this: not having Josh Bailey, no offense to Josh Bailey, not having Josh Bailey, I feel like opens things up a lot to trying other stuff out, and I'm excited with the opportunity that Wallstrom can get, and I'm really really hoping that it works out.
I was waiting for the opportunity to talk about Josh Bailey, one
Mm.
of the most underrated players of all time.
You say that facetiously.
Yeah. Yeah. So uh, Tom, you have not made your love-hate relationship with Josh Bailey. You've not hidden in your love-hate relationship with Josh Bailey and how he plays. Uh, and so I think yes, it's unfortunately good for the team that he's no longer on it. But will we see a similar effect when Leo Komarov left? And I knew Sterling was going to react to this.
Liner Leo Komarov.
Yeah, first liner Leo Komarov. Yeah, exactly. So I really want to get Sterling's opinion on that. And it's probably not as dramatic, but I need to know what you think.
Well, like Leo Komarov was one of the best first liners we've ever had, and then he left. He left, and we started missing the postseason. Josh, he was one of the first liners of all time. I'll go with that. And now that he's gone, maybe we'll win the Stanley Cup. I don't know.
Oh, so inverse, you're saying.
Yeah.
Yeah. That would really suck for Josh for being on the team
Here,
for what, how many years? Like
Like,
19 years?
yeah,
It's like,
20 years.
and
Oh wait, I think.
08, so yeah, 15 years, I guess.
15 years,
Um,
16.
and yeah, and the first season he's gone, we win the Stanley Cup. I mean, look, I wouldn't feel that bad for him. I'd rather have the Stanley Cup. But so yeah, I
well,
don't I think I do think it's unfortunately good that he's gone. But I don't know. What do you so Sterling, obviously you said anything, I don't know if Sarah or Tom.
I mean, from like a strictly objective standpoint, yes, it's obviously pretty good that he's gone because he was kind of a dead weight the last couple years. But in terms of like uh just the team culture and like locker room presence, obviously he was a huge part of it. He's on the team for 15 years. Like you can't negate that.
There'll be a power vacuum in the locker room, and Ross Johnston will take over and become
no,
the
no.
new. Yes.
Brock Nelson time, baby. It's assistant captain Brock Nelson time.
Okay. So I don't know if we want to keep on talking about Josh Bailey or not. It's okay.
Oh, sorry, I'm a Josh Bailey apologist. So.
I just want to.
there
Yeah,
there are
you go.
there are some people that are obsessive and need to let go because he's not on the team anymore.
No, I'm not that bad, but I just like
The other way, like people that hate him.
yeah.
Like,
Oh.
unless he scores for Ottawa against us, so I guess he can hurt us. Or like if you hate Josh Bailey, you're not even expecting that because you probably don't even think he's going to get signed off the PTO, which is possible.
So all right. So we talked about Wallstrom. We talked about Bailey. Bailey's no longer in the hot. He was in the hot seat, and now he is off of it in a bit. Yeah, he would have been in the hot seat. Okay, so yeah, who else is in the hot seat? Sterling, you want to say your next person? Because we probably
Yeah,
have similar
sure.
lists, but
Yeah. With this roster, it's very hard to find them because, they're all locked up long term. But I will just go ahead and nominate Hudson Fasching. This is nothing against him, but I feel like we're at the stage where we've signed forward depth. If let's say Gauthier, whatever his name is, let's say he turns out to be a nice piece for you, then I don't know. I think Hudson Fasching is kind of expendable at that point. They're gonna keep trying to push Simon Holmstrom making a roster spot. They're already doing that in preseason. Wallstrom is definitely, I think, going to get a chance over him this season. I don't know. I feel like he's at this stage in his career where he is what he is. And if we have better options, he'll just be a scratch most of the time, I think.
That's interesting with Fashing. I think, it's completely possible that, last year was an aberration. It was. I mean, we just talked about before the podcast, he had played games in 5 separate NHL seasons and had scored 1 goal prior to being an Islander. And then last year he gets a chance. All of a sudden he scores 10 and he's 19 points. I think that's a good underrated pick for the hot seat because it's not really based off what he did last year. He was great last year. And it's more so, having a few more guys behind him, especially Holmstrom, who's a guy that we drafted in the first round. And even though he hasn't been like an offensive dynamo yet, he's a guy that I think the team likes. I think in a perfect world, like I said before the pod, Fashing would overtake Clutterbuck. And then you could play both, whoever breaks out and Fashing at the same time. When Clutterbuck retires, and Clutterbuck missed a lot of games last year, and he's been getting hurt more and more as he's gotten older. I think I like the fact that they can push Fashing around the lineup and then bring up Holmstrom or Gauthier if he works well.
Yeah, that's actually really interesting because I don't know what Cal Clutterbuck's contract is, but do you guys know off the top of your head how much longer he has?
This is it, I think.
What?
Yeah, he got like a 2 year. I think this is the second year of it. Oh,
okay, yeah. So because it's just I expect Cal to maybe play half the games this season because he's going to get injured. It's unfortunate. It's just the way he plays the game, and it's also unfortunate because he has a really good shot. He's a great player, and he's obviously just very physical. So that's interesting. It would be interesting to kind of, but see, like here's the thing: like if Fashing took over that, whether it was a 4th line position or something, it's like it wouldn't be the same type of player. It'd be, but I guess that's how everybody says the game is going, right? More skill based. So
I don't think it's extremely different. I think it's just a younger version. I mean, it's definitely Clutterbuck's more of a grinder for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Gates, and he's really good at getting the other team off their game. Fashing is more of like a hard work, seems like a heart and soul type guy, like a perfect guy for your 4th line. Clutterbuck, by the way, you were almost exactly right. Last year he played 49 games. So like maybe, expect half the games. He had 12 points in 49 games. Like for reference, Martin had 19 in 81. So Clutterbuck, like when he's going to be more productive than Martin for sure. And who else is there? Holmstrom only had 9 points in 50 games. He's like a defensive forward. Fashing had 19 points. So Fashing, in the same amount of games, Fashing had 19 points to Clutterbuck's 12. So I think it's just an offensive version of Clutterbuck.
I would love him on the 4th line, and the only thing is he wouldn't be my pick for hot seat if we had a different GM. But like Lou Lamoriello, I'm totally expecting him to re-sign Cal for maybe 1 or 2 more years. And you know what? I'll just go on a very short rant how he should be on the hot seat. Actually, I'll spare that for another time. But yes, Lou, I'm expecting more chaos with, and he's actually my vote for hot seat.
Okay,
that's interesting. I was gonna say Lane Lambert, and
Ooh.
this is like I actually wasn't thinking this, and then I literally got an ESPN notification today being like coaches that are on the hot seat, and Lane Lambert was the first one, and it was like across hockey and football. And
Wow.
and I was like totally disagreed with it. I was just like, and then I tried to read the article and it was an ESPN Plus article. So I was like, all right, well, never mind. So I have no idea what. Wait, what did you say, Tom?
That just feels like a weird thing. It's like, put 2 sports in a hat.
It was very weird, yeah. But either way, so I was thinking like it, but it just made me question that. I was like, well, I'm expecting him to do at least as good as last season. And I am obviously hoping that the team does better. and the team responds to his coaching. It's similar to Trotz's style and everything as he was assistant coach under Barry Trotz. But I think he's only going to get better. Truthfully, I think there's upside for him as a coach. It's his second. It's going to be his second season coaching at being the head coach, and so I'm very optimistic. But if things go sideways, I could see people blaming him. I could see us in a future podcast from now blaming him for everything and Lou. But either way.
Yeah, but that's just typical New York. Like one season and he's already like, get him out.
Yeah, that's true. So yeah, I think that he the pressure's not on right now, but like middle of the season, it's if things are going okay. I think the pressure, because it could be going better. I mean, you know what I mean? The pressure will be starting to turn up on him.
Yeah, it's interesting. I think that's probably a popular opinion because I don't think I am someone, admittedly, way too early last year. I think I said he should be fired. Like,
yes,
having the full year now and now the offseason to kind of digest it. Last year has kind of aged better for me. Because first of all, Barzal played 58 games. Who else? Pellick played 61. So they're missing significant time for one of maybe their most important forward, although Nelson might be that. And maybe they're probably their most important defenseman. And the way they were able to navigate and still get in, even though, it was, you could fairly say the Penguins just did not want to make the playoffs, and that's why we got in. That's part of it. I mean, they lost to Chicago and Andreas Athanasiou, who's now my God. But I think there's a case you can build that, and also the fact that Carolina, who beat us, obviously, Carolina dispatched Jersey real easy. And I think that makes us look way better in retrospect because it's like I thought Jersey finished way ahead of us in the standings. Is a team that's way more sexy because they got a lot of more young talent and people are hyped for them. But the Islanders were the harder out for Carolina. So I'm going into this year with a fresh slate on Lane. You could even say it's slightly positive. But at the same time, like Sarah said, it is New York. And I feel like that changes so quickly. So I don't know, they could start 2-6 and all of a sudden he is in the hot seat. So I can see that.
But I also share a similar taste to you. But the thing about, we're in the New York fan base is how are there still Lou apologists every single year, but not for the coaching? Because I don't know. I think it's kind of ridiculous if he fired Lane this year and he's still here for another 2 years. This is what he built. I frankly had enough of it. I don't know why he's still here. Made some awful decisions this offseason, I thought. And we're talking about firing his second coach before him. I don't know. I can't really get on board with that.
I think the reason for that is it is accepted that ownership respects what he's done a lot, and they're probably afraid of him a little bit. And so it feels very much like Lou is going to be here until he does not want to be here. And I think a lot of Islander fans probably acknowledge that. And so I think that's maybe why some of the stuff gets passed on to Lane, because it's like Lane is less a permanent fixture because Lane has not won multiple Stanley Cups, even though they were years ago. I think that's why. I think if you took Lou's, it's hard to take that out because it's like who Lou is. He has a resume that's really good. If Lou were a different GM, having just done these moves with no history, I think it would probably be even worse in terms of anger towards him, because it'd be like, who's this guy? He doesn't know what he's doing. I wouldn't call myself a Lou apologist, but I love the Sorokin deal. I am someone that actually likes the Engvall deal as well. Mm-hmm. And the Varley one, money wise, is fine. The years are too much, in Mayfield probably both are a little. I mean, the money's probably fine, and the years are too much. So I don't think it was a terrible offseason. If you consider that they got Horvat and Engvall last year, and so like how are they compared to when they started last year? Definitely better. But yeah, so that's me. I guess some people might paint that as a Lou apologist. Um, I wish he had done other things, but I do think they have a good enough team to do things. I'm not going to give away where I think they're going to go in the standings.
Yeah, yeah. And one more thing, I've seen the argument about us now versus the beginning of last year. And that's fair. I'd like to propose back, what are we now versus the team that got eliminated by Carolina? And that's what frustrates me the most is we didn't really change. I mean, we lost a great piece in Zach Parisi from that team, and we're bringing back Wallstrom, but like, I don't know, that might be his upside at 20 goals for this year. And I'm on the same page with you about the Engvall and Sorokin deals, but like Mayfield, I didn't even want back in the first place, and we have him for 7 years.
I don't think
And
anybody wanted him
Farley,
back.
I am pro
yeah,
Mayfield. I
um,
don't like the deal necessarily, but I do like Mayfield. He's grown on me a lot. And
okay,
wait, quick thing. I do think that the Mayfield deal, if he's still playing, let's say, if he hasn't shown too much signs of regression in 4 or 5 years, like he can be traded probably at least for something. So all right.
I think they're all like no movement clauses too.
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
So, also, like I disagree. I think in a few years he's going to be completely untradeable, even if he's still okay. His
But it's
style.
about loyalty, Tom. What do you not understand? Okay, it's about loyalty to the team and to the players.
Who is the Godfather? I do think his loyalty goes a little bit too far, and I think the Mayfield deal is like Exhibit A for
yeah.
that. And Clutterbuck. Like I like Clutterbuck. I really do. I like him as a player. I think they probably should have cut bait last year, and with the emergence of Fashion, I would have liked Fashion to be in that spot, but it's what it is.
I mean, 4 years for Varley, like he's gonna be 39 at the end of that. I know the money is not an issue, but like we are okay, it's the preseason, but we saw Skarek and like he was whatever. He's a backup. You can find backups. You don't need a 35-year-old for 4 years.
Definitely, like it's weird because like I think the deal I was expecting was 2.5 for 2 or 3, like the third being like the loyalty year. And so I was pretty surprised that 4 feels like a lot. I think Lou puts a lot of stock into locker room chemistry, and it sounds like Sorokin and Varlamov are like real good buddies. Um, you know, I don't know if I would run things that way. Where because I feel like that can go the other way. That can lead to complacence because these guys know they're here forever and they're playing with their best buddies, and they're just gonna go golf if they lose anyway. But I'm hoping that the fire is back. I feel like the prove people wrong mentality that they had when Tavar, in the wake of Tavar's leaving, kind of faltered a little bit over the last 2 years, where you got a missed playoffs and then a first round exit. So I hope, I don't know. I hope the little bit of depth that we have that can put some pressure on some of the guys in the bottom 6 will hopefully start to get those fires going again.
For sure, yeah.
Yeah, and the last person I have on my hot seat, and I didn't look at the players' contracts before this, which I should have. He as Kyle Palmieri. Again, more so due to injuries, because I know he's practicing with the team. He hasn't played in the preseason yet. And last year, I just pulled his stats up. He played 55 games last year. So, and I really like Kyle Palmieri. So I don't know what his contract is though, but I think he's been kind of streaky. So like sometimes, like I'd be expecting a bit more from him. I don't think he's going to leave the team, but yeah.
Yeah, I think he had 33 points in 55 games. I think I'm going to give it a little bit of time and see how it works with Engvall season again. But I liked what I saw towards the end of last year. I agree. I think he needs to be a little bit more consistent. I know that Brock is pretty much the scorer on that line that like actually pots the goals, but I think Palmieri needs to add that a little bit more because I think Sterling brought up a good point. They're going to have to make up for the loss of Palmieri, the loss of Parise. Parise had 21 goals last year. And right now you're relying on some guys to pick up the slack a little bit to make up for that. Wally is fully capable of I think his career high in goals is 13, Wally. And if he can just boost that a little bit, and he got similar numbers from Fasching, maybe more from Fasching, playing, if Fasching gets an opportunity to play on the first line, if Wally doesn't work out. Like, I don't know. I think they can scrounge together those 21 goals that Parise leaves. And I think a lot of that is relying on somebody I forgot to put as like my secondary hot seat, Bo Horvat. And that's not like a hot seat like he's in any danger of being gone, but more so like the fan base seems split on him. And he was last year 16 points in 30 games. He's going to need to do better than that this year, but I think it also needs to be kept in mind that Simon Holmstrom was on his line, and no offense to Simon Holmstrom, but he's not Matt Barzal. When Barzal was hurt, it was pretty tough for Horvat to get things going. Full year, fresh slate. I think Horvat can make up, also help pitch in for those missed goals.
Cool. Yeah, certainly. I don't know that's it for me for what I was thinking was on the hot seat. I don't know if anybody else has any other additions before we move on.
Yeah. Well,
Well,
I mean, since you brought up Simon Holmstrom, I don't think he's on the hot seat at all, but just I don't like what's going on with him. 9 points in 50 games. You just framed your argument in the terms of Horvat had Holmstrom on his line, thus he wasn't great. But like the other way, Holmstrom had Horvat on his line, and he only put up 9 points over the whole season. They're trying to force him in this left wing one position in the preseason, and like I recognize he's young, so I'm not fully giving up on him yet. But like he's a defensive player. He'd be great on the third line, I think. I don't like the beginning signs this season of what they're trying to do with him at all, especially not when this is a make or break year for guys like Wahlstrom, Fasching, etc.
Yeah, I think it's a good thing that Wahlstrom now looks to be practicing with the first line, because Wahlstrom, his play, the type of player he was coming out of the draft, was a player that you would expect to be a sniper playing in the top six. So now Wahlstrom getting that chance out of the gate, I think would be ideal. And Holmstrom, like you said, he's young. I think 21 or 22 still. More of a defensive player. Yeah, I think Holmstrom is going to be a career bottom six guy. And his defensive outlook is good. So yeah, I think he was there in the preseason to test out like contingency plans for other things. So if he actually does end up there and it's not because of injury, I will be pretty worried. I will not be happy if Lane goes that route for no reason, unless like we start and like the first line's doing nothing and you got to do something to shake it up. And then even then you could probably argue Holmstrom's not the guy to start the scoring on the first line. So yeah, I think he's somebody that pick. He's a first round pick. And it seems to me that he doesn't have a ton of offensive upside. That seems like maybe a guy you don't want to take in the first round.
Yeah.
I met him, so he's great. And he's going to score 50 goals. I'm sorry.
Right. Yeah. Well, I guess at this point, should we start being more optimistic, happy, and talking about guys we're excited about?
Yeah. Break out.
Let's do it. Yeah. All right. So,
why don't we have Sarah and James start?
Sorry, I cut you off.
That's okay. Why don't we have you guys, Sarah and James, start? We'll reverse it.
You want to start?
Okay.
All right, Sarah, start.
Well, just off the top of my head, I have Horvat and Engvall, only because we only saw them as Islanders for half, like for Horvat, and like quarter of the season for
Engvall played
Engvall.
Let's see.
So I feel like we haven't really gotten the opportunity to see them like come into their own as Islanders. And this year, I really feel like they will probably have a lot of opportunities to be able to develop individually as players and like chemistry wise with everybody else. And what was the other thing? Oh, Wallstrom as well, like if he stays healthy, because I really feel like that injury set him back a lot, obviously. And if he has a good season, I really, really feel like he could be someone of the same caliber as Barzal. So,
Speaking of Barzal, I think Bo and Barzal are gonna be everything we've ever wanted this season. We're gonna be. It's gonna be like magic. It's going to be not the same, but comparable to McDavid and Draisaitl. You know what I mean? It's going to be that level. Yeah.
Right.
All right. I'm not insane, but I do think that like I'm hoping the chemistry will be there this season, and I'm very very excited to see them like playing a full season together. And I'm very hopeful that it'll go as good as McDavid and Draisaitl. But anyway, so I don't know. That they're the biggest ones I'm hoping for a breakout. What about you guys?
I'm never gonna forgive you for like if that gets clipped. Like, oh man, I'm retiring. Somebody just an awful trade offer in fantasy football. Anyway, Sterling.
Yeah.
I think I know yours, but go ahead.
Oh, really?
Is it
Well, I mean, of course, Bo was already said, so I had to think of other people. So besides Oliver Wahlstrom, two people I had in mind are Julian Gauthier, and I do have my reservations about him. I'm not sure if he'll be a full-time player, but when he is in the lineup, I was like super impressed by his speed in the preseason. He looked pretty good, like nothing crazy, but uh, potentially could add much needed speed to the lineup. And my other pick, which is unlike me, I'd say, I'm going to go with Sebastian Aho. I have not been a fan of him at all. For some reason, I have faith in him this year, being good defensively. I really want to see him jump up on the rush a bit because we're lacking that on defense. And he's probably the fastest defenseman we have. I'm not too sure though. Maybe it's just the ESPN or not ESPN, MSG commentary from the other night persuading me. But yeah, I think in a season where our defense might not be amazing, I would like to see him step up, and I think he's capable of it.
I like that. That's a very undercover pick. It was funny. Somebody pointed out like it's weird to say this for a defenseman and a center, but like he had chemistry with Barzy last year. Barzy's behind the net. He would spot Aho pinching, and Aho would score. I think a couple of times. I think that happened. That's interesting. 23 points in 71 games from Aho last year. It's pretty good. I think he needs to clean up his. He's got one advanced stat, which is one fall per game. Once he just falls down for no reason. And I think he started cleaning that up. I think it used to be closer to 1.5. Now it's probably down to 1. So yeah, I like that. That's an interesting one. For me, number 1 is Engvall. Engvall played in 18 regular season games and put up 9 points. It took him a little bit to get going. I don't know if you guys remember, he was healthy scratched a couple times early on after the trade deadline, and it was like, oh boy, we just traded for this guy. He's not even freaking playing in the games. And then they were able to get him acclimated, and that line is a problem. It seems like Engvall, Nelson, Palmieri seem to give teams fits. He had 2 points in the 6 playoff games. He brings a little bit more speed. I'd much rather see him there than Bailey on the second line. It's giving them an excuse to move Lee down to the third, which I think is something that they've needed to do. Very excited, especially Engvall getting a full season next to last year, 36. Let me just make sure that's right. 36 goal scorer Brock Nelson. Brock, man, this I have the white fisherman right here. I'm getting Brock put on the back of it.
Nice.
I drafted Tennessee. He had 75 points last year, and ESPN thinks he's going to drop by 30. I'm all in on Brock. Buy all the Brock. This is financial advice.
Brock, yeah. So this is actually probably should have mentioned in the hot seat thing. I don't think Brock's in the hot seat, but I do wonder if we're going to see these like same high numbers from people that put up a lot of points last year. So Brock, obviously, but he's been reasonably consistent the past couple of years, so I'm not worried about him. But I do worry.
Are you worried about Brock?
I'm not. No, I'm seriously not. I think he's going to be. I don't think he's going to be better. Sorry, I cut you off. What did you say?
I'm going to send the secret Brock police after you.
Bro, I have his jersey. It's right there.
Me, the secret Brock police.
There it is.
To remember where you live.
So, but also Dobson, and so like I feel like Dobson, we relied on him a lot for scoring mostly early last season.
Yeah.
But it does make me wonder. It's like, are we looking at things that could have been aberrations or things that could have been points that aren't reproducible for this upcoming season, and kind of expecting that to be part of the Islanders game. And I feel like my intuition says that Brock and Dobson will probably be relatively close to whatever their point totals were last year. But I think a lot of the analysts and stuff are always like, oh, it was just like a one, because like whatever the advanced stats don't agree with it or something like that.
I'll kill them.
It is Brocktober.
That I will not actually do that. I do.
For legal reasons.
Yeah.
I think Brock, God, isn't he so dreamy? Sorry, now I'm looking at Brock to see the
pictures of Brock.
Pictures of Brock, yeah. Yeah, I mean, a little bit of a jump. He had 59 points in 72 games the year before. Yeah, like, I don't know. It's probably tough to replicate 75, but if he's anywhere near that again, I'm pretty happy. Just feels like if he can do something similar to that, and Horvat can do something similar to what he was working on in Vancouver, then we're absolutely cooking.
And if I know anything about advanced stats, is that plus minus is the most important advanced stat there is. And Brock, it was a plus 13 last year. So man, I don't. Yeah, Brock is fast becoming my new Franz Nielsen. No one's ever released Franz Nielsen. He's always going to be my favorite, but I was at the game where Brock scored his first goal, so I feel like there's a close kinship. We're good buddies. So Sterling, is Brock becoming your Leo Komarov?
Oh, absolutely not. But I will say this. I don't know if I've said it on here before, but the last year I lived in New York, I lived in an apartment building on Long Island, and I believe there were 4 Islanders who lived in the same building. And I remember it was Brock Nelson was one of them. And then the others were guys like Ryan Strome and maybe like Shane Prince or something. But yes, he was at that time, like when I heard he lived there. Yeah, Shane Prince. When I heard he lived there, he was the type of player where it was like, oh, that's cool. Like an Islander lives in my building. But like, now he's one of the best players on the team. So it's pretty remarkable the steps he's taken. Yeah.
Yeah. And he owes it all to Barry Trotz. The second Barry Trotz stepped in, all of a sudden Brock turned into this fantastic forward. Yeah. So I think wait, did I go? Yeah, I went. Julien Gauthier was like a smaller candidate as well. Like if there's any injury time or somebody's not produced, like Fashing like turns back into an AHLer. Gauthier showed some capabilities. Absolute snipe in the Flyer game, like just so hard a slap shot that none of the cameras picked it up. That's fun. Yeah. I think roster wise, we can transition into the last Islander, well, the second to last Islander discussion, but this will be quick. I would love, sounds mean. No, I would prefer that Ross Johnston does not make the team.
I agree.
Who agrees? Who agrees with that? I feel like make it easier. Yeah, James is the big Ross guy, so probably not. I just don't see what he adds when the team seems to be finally getting a little bit faster.
He adds penalty minutes. He adds, a lot of just adds.
Not actual hockey.
Yeah, it is funny. The third, I think it was the third preseason game. I can't remember if it was the first preseason game against the Rangers or the third game where they played the Rangers again, where it was just like the second he steps on the ice, it's like he's just targeting guys. It's just what
Who wants to go? Who wants to fight? It's like
yeah. And it's just like a ridiculous. It's kind of ridiculous, almost that's even tolerated in a sense. But yeah, I do like Ross. I'm sure he's a really nice guy, and he just has some anger issues, and he puts that above being good at hockey. So, but I mean, the legitimate value is protecting the young players. So, he's probably not a bad guy to have, so that like people don't try, some other players or other teams don't try and essentially bully the younger players on the Islanders. So I don't know. Out of all the options, yeah, I don't think he should make the roster, but I wouldn't hate it.
I feel like from an enforcer perspective, you have Martin to do the same thing. I know Martin's older. He probably doesn't want to fight as much anymore because he's like, can I get out of this league without more concussions and fights? But I mean, Clutter's more of an instigator than a fighter. But yeah, I don't know. Johnston, I would just start him in the AHL and then call him up when there's a game. If there's an injury, you can call him up and you put him in a game where you're playing against the Rangers and you want to just have fights 24/7. I don't know. I don't feel like I feel like they have made small progress in making themselves faster by having Julien Gauthier and having a guy with a little bit of promise like Simon Holmstrom. We know what Ross is like. The only way that makes any sense is if Holmstrom is the one that goes down and they wait and see if Holmstrom lights up the AHL, and then you call Holmstrom back up and send Ross down because you don't have to worry about anybody claiming Ross on waivers. So
no, what the Rangers would do it just to like annoy the Islanders and their fan base. Yeah.
Wouldn't annoy me. It would not annoy me.
No, annoy me, Rangers. Okay, one other guy that I want to center. That this is a smaller conversation because there's not as much depth, but at defense and the seventh defenseman. So we're really nitpicking because it's a guy that's not going to start playing. He's going to start in the rafters watching the game in a suit. But I do not like Samuel Bolduc yet. Yeah. He was real bad in that Canadiens game where we clinched the playoffs last year because he single-handedly let the Canadiens back into the game. It was amazing. He just didn't hustle back at all. He's slow. I don't see that offensive upside that apparently he has in the AHL. I'm not saying this is never going to happen for him, but I'm very concerned when he has to play because I do not feel like he is an NHL player. He might be soon. He's not old, but it feels like we banished Robin Salo to the Shadow Realm, and maybe Samuel Bolduc belongs in the Shadow Realm as well. And maybe Grant Hutton should be the guy that comes up as a guy that I've seen not a ton of, but what I've seen, he seems a little bit more confident on the puck. So that's, I don't know. What do you guys feel about that? Do you guys have any? I mean, do you guys have any feelings about the Islanders' seventh D-man?
I do actually. Yes. I also wouldn't put him in my starting six at all. I don't hate him. I just don't like the options we have. Like Grant Hutton, sure, okay, he would be my pick too. But other than that, we lost Parker Wotherspoon and Robin Salo. Like I was thinking, we kind of got rid of him, didn't give him a fair chance. But from the few minutes he got that I saw in preseason, I wasn't impressed at all. I don't think has a future with the team, to be honest. And then Dennis Cholowski is just horrible. So, like, I don't know. I'd go with Hutton too, and then probably Bolduc. Yeah, which I think you would too. I think that's what you said.
Yeah, I don't think there's a lot of. I mean, how many sexy options are there at the 7th defense? Unless you're a team that like has a prospect and he's just waiting to play. Like, but I mean, Bolduc is apparently that, but I think he's probably got to play in the AHL a little bit more.
But yeah, people were talking about like, even Lane was saying like Isaiah George and Matthew Maggio are incredible, and people were thinking that meant that they might have a shot at making the roster this year. Like, not even close from what I saw. No, like they'll be good for us. They, unlike Salo, I think have a future, but not even close to ready. No.
Yeah. James and Sarah, anything on the 7D man?
No.
That's completely fair.
I don't know. I haven't like seen enough of these options to have an opinion. So
Fair. I feel like not a lot of people probably have because they don't play.
And that's why they come to Belmont Bunch for these informed takes.
I'm just being honest.
I know. I'm trying to too.
I think I told most of the story, but now that we're talking about Robin Salo, when I met Simon Holmstrom, at first I only recognized.
Wait, Tom, did you meet Simon Holmstrom? What? Are you? I had no idea.
At Eisenhower with some of our high school buddies, and went to the team store and saw a few guys that were clearly in shape, and I was like, no one's in shape. They must be professionals. So I saw them, and I reckon for some reason it's literally just NHL be a GM mode brain rot on my side. I know everyone in the NHL's face because I've looked at so much NHL GM mode. So I recognized Simon Holmstrom. I was like, oh, that's Simon Holmstrom for sure. And then I went up and I just shoved my camera in the other chest and was like, take a picture of me. So it wasn't that embarrassing. I'm exaggerating. But then I was like, wait a second, you guys are Islanders as well. You're Sebastian Aho. And it was. And I was like, oh, nice. And then I went to the third guy and I went, and you're, he goes, Robin Salo. And I'm like, that's right. And I have an excuse for that. His face is not in the NHL game. It's a blank. It's one of the faces. So that recognize his face. If his face was in the game, I for sure would have recognized him.
Wow.
What year was this?
Going into last season.
Okay.
And were you like, and do you know who I am? And they were like, yeah, you're Mr. Belmont Bunch, of course. And then you could have pointed, I don't know if they still have that. I haven't been to the team store in a while, but they had that jersey that just said Belmont on the back, and like 2021 or whatever, like, for the first year that it was for the stadium. You'd be like, that's my jersey. That's me.
Gonna get that in pink but bedazzled as well.
Yeah, same thing, Okay, so sorry, Tom, I cut you off. What'd you say?
I would get called unsavory names.
Okay, so now that we got that out of the way, I had no idea Tom met Simon Holmstrom. So let's talk about the place predictions for the Islanders. Do they make the playoffs? Do they not? Where, if so, where do they end up? What's the narrative that we build around this season, or the narrative we predict the season will be? Who wants to start?
I can start, and I will be extremely quick, and you will yell at me if that's a lie. I'm asking. Please yell at me if that's a lie. I did all my predictions today. I have the Islanders finishing in 4th in the Metro, and getting a wild card spot. I think that Horvat, a full year of Horvat with Barzy in his career has been generally healthy. So full year with Barzy and Horvat, chemistry is good. That gives Wahlstrom a chance to break out. I like the second line already a lot. The fourth line still is serviceable defensively. And the third line could be really interesting. You're telling me Hudson Fasching is going to play with Pajot. I like that. So defensively, I think it's pretty good. Goaltending is great. I think it's never sexy with this Islander team. Those 2 playoff runs started with wild cards, and then they got hot. Yeah, I think they get it. I do think they get it. So that I'll leave it at that.
Well, where did you mention where you think they make it in the playoffs?
Oh, I didn't know we were going to go that far.
Do we want to? I don't know.
It's hard to say. I think the expectation will be for me, the season needs to include a playoff berth for sure. They're in a win now. They have to make the playoffs. I think if they win a round, I will be pretty happy. If they win 2 rounds, I'll be very happy. And anything on top of that will be cake. I don't think we're necessarily I don't think we're a cup contender, but with a guy like Ilya Sorokin, you always have a chance to make a run. We saw with the Panthers last year. You get a hot goalie, and the team just hits their stride at the right time. The Panthers looked amazing. So, I think the Islanders could do that. So I think if you nailed me to a prediction, I'll say they get to the second round.
All right, cool. Sterling, what do you think?
Yes, I will go with 5th in the Metro. Yes, they make the playoffs, so only 3 teams from the Atlantic in my eyes. The team, like usual, has plenty of problems. I think the defense is actually kind of overrated at this point. Pellick and Pollock they're aging all right, and then Dobson's not great defensively. Romanov can be a bit shaky. Scott Mayfield. But offensively, I do think they look to be one of the better teams we've seen maybe in the past 5 years offensively. So I think they'll sneak into a playoff spot. But I do really like a lot of the moves that other Metro teams made. And one team I wanted to bring up specifically is actually the Rangers, because they've been taking a lot of hate. And I'm a fan. Like Blake Wheeler, that's a guy I wanted, and you signed him for 1 mil, I believe. That's amazing. Eric Gustafson on the back end, I loved what he was doing in Washington. Admittedly, he didn't get much playing time after he was traded to Toronto. And they already had, their top guys like Panarin, etc. So I think they'll make the playoffs. Lots of people think they won't, but I'm saying they will. As for when we make the postseason, I'm kind of expecting another first round loss, which is unacceptable considering we're in win now mode. However, if we were to make the playoffs, like we had previously mentioned, the cap is going up next year, I think significantly. So I can see why we couldn't do much this offseason, but you gotta make moves next year, because this isn't a cup team. No way, not in my eyes. And for you to be in this fake win now mode for the next 5 years is pretty unacceptable to me. So you gotta make moves next year. For now, I think we'll be decent.
Yeah.
Sorry. Yep.
I think the contract thing, and this is where Lou would disagree with us, but I think Engvall is going to have to end up being a gigantic key on this team, because that contract can turn out to be amazing. It can if he blossoms on that line, and he's making $3 million and he's playing second line. That's an amazing bargain for a second liner. But that requires Engvall to really, really, really break out. And it's how much better is he going to get than half a point a game, which is what he was last year, which is already pretty good. But I don't know. So Lou obviously sees something in Engvall that he thinks could, go to the moon. So yeah, I think Wahlstrom and Engvall are going to be very important if they're going to have any cup upside, because they're going to need guys to score. Yeah, I think it's a fair worry to worry that we're in limbo.
Yeah, and this has, I think, been the worry for we've kind of touched on it from time to time. It's just like, what's our future prospects if we don't win now? It's like we're not in a rebuild. So it's not like if we made it to the playoffs, oh, that's amazing because, like our team's only going to get better. It's not it's not the situation we're in with like the kind of puzzle of contracts that kind of tied guys up are tying guys up for a long time. So we don't expect them to get any better. We just hope that they'll stay the same. So my prediction is that I think so it was been the last five of the last 6 years we made the playoffs, or 4 of the last 5 years we made the playoffs. We just missed 2 seasons ago. Barry Trotz's last season, and we just missed. And I don't know what it is. Like we've talked about this too on the podcast. Whatever it is, the Islanders struggle getting into the playoffs, but they are like such a difficult team to play against in the playoffs. So I have a feeling we'll see concerns about that, around the middle towards the end of the regular season. But I do think we squeeze in. I don't know. I'm expecting us to not be a wild card spot, but I'm not going to complain if we are. And I'm also like pretty optimistic that we'll make it to the second round, but I would be very surprised if we made it past the second round. That's like my highest hopes. And but yeah, what did you say, Tom?
James, what place do you have us being in?
I don't actually have a place. So either third or fourth. I don't know whether or not that would be like a wild card spot. I didn't plan it out. But I don't think anybody. I remember somebody. I think it was Tom from, I don't know, 2 or 3 seasons ago. You were like, Islanders are finishing number 1 in the division.
I for sure got caught up in, because that was coming out of the second bubble year, and for sure got definitely overexcited because now I've recognized, like, even when the Islanders are good, they're not a crazy regular season team. They're a good regular season team that needs to stay. It's like you said, it's harder for them to make the playoffs than to play well in them. Because they play a playoff, like a style that is difficult in the playoffs to face.
Yeah.
It's a big part of that.
And so I don't blame, I wouldn't hold the prediction against you. I mean, like everybody after the second bubble year, we made it to the conference finals 2 years in a row. Everybody was high, or at least all the fan base, I think, was very high on the team. And so my prediction being I'm very optimistic that we'll make it to the second round. I won't be disappointed. I honestly will just be happy if we make it into the playoffs. And I think it's very interesting what Sterling said. Like next year, if assuming we get a cap increase, that gives us some flexibility to make important moves, like to actually improve the team, and maybe get some more favorable contracts. Whether or not Lou is the one that's doing that, I don't know. With knowing Lou, he'll just be like, oh, there's a $4 million salary cap increase. Everybody just gets a raise, like, I don't know. Yeah. You've all been so loyal to the team. But my other predictions for the season is I predict Wahlstrom makes it through the entire season without any major injuries. I don't know why I predict that. It's just, a vibe. And I think I don't know. I'm pessimistic about the fourth line. I think the fourth line is going to be showing its age a lot. I didn't consider Fasching kind of taking over one of those spots. That could actually I don't know. I don't say it would be a good patch, but maybe a good arc. It transitions from, it's still an identity line, but just transitions from being this grinding line to more of like a, I don't know, just a I don't know, it's still physical but not as grinding, I guess.
Yeah. On the fourth line, I think I'd be most worried if Cizikas gets hurt, only because who do you put at 4C? I don't know. Because the 2 scratch forwards I would bring onto the team are both wingers. It's Gauthier and Holmstrom. And Johnston isn't. None of the guys that they're even considering for the extra roster spots are centers. Unless, actually, you know what? Although I haven't really seen much of him, so it makes me think they're not considering Carson Kuhlman is a guy that has played in the NHL level, has played in a Stanley Cup final with Boston. And we signed him seemingly to be that AHL/NHL guy in a pinch. I guess we would probably call him up. But I don't know. We have a lot of centers now, so do you just put Barzy at first line center, put Horvat at 2C? I don't know, but like it doesn't make any sense to put Nelson at 3C and Pajot. I could see Pajot in a world where he's older and on a smaller contract playing on the fourth line because Pajot has that fight. But yeah, I think maybe Carson Kuhlman is the guy in that case, and then it's not great, but it is a guy that has played in the NHL.
So, is there any predictions for the season?
I will be pleasantly surprised if they are in fourth place by the end of the season, but I think it's more than likely that they'll squeeze in through like a wild card spot. And then, I mean, they'll be lucky if they make it past the first round, but if they do, it's going to be a second round knockout, no question.
Spoken like a true Islanders fan, just every step of the way, you're like, we'll be lucky if this happens, and we'll be lucky if that happens,
But I just think it's really funny because like we went through our excitement levels, and then none of us had us going like the cup. I think there's a fair question of like, should we be okay with what we all just said, which is like first round, maybe second. So I think what James said is maybe a good follow-up to that, which is like, there is the fallback that they'll have some cap space next year when the cap goes up. And we'll see, what happens. But there's a lot of guys on this team with no trade. So you better hope they're good, because I don't know who they can even move out if they tried to. So that's that. But yeah, should we move into our full predictions?
I think, yeah. So you and Sterling both prepared full league predictions.
So I will go. The way we're going to do it to get through it as quickly as possible is I'm going to do a division. Then Sterling's going to do a division. Like we're just going to say 1 through 8, not even add any commentary. And once we both have said it, we're going to add the commentary. So Sterling, where do you want to start?
Well, let's start with the Metro. That's where we are.
All right, for me, because I have one division. I'm really out there, but it is not the Metro. So I'm glad we're not starting with the crazy stuff. Metro, Hurricanes 1, Devils 2, Rangers 3, Islanders 4, Pens 5, Caps 6, Blue Jackets 7, Flyers 8. Any differences for you?
Wow, I'm just swapping Islanders and Penguins, and it's the same list.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think quickly going through that, like you get Erik Karlsson, and that is obviously a sexy move. I am not enamored with the fact that Nedeljkovic is going to be their backup, and I think that the Penguins are going to have trouble in net. But I do still have I have the Penguins at 5, so I still have them contending. Slight spoiler, do not have the Penguins in the playoffs, so I have 4 teams from each division in the East making the playoffs. I really had a tough time not putting the Devils at 1. But the way that the Carolina plays kind of like what the Islanders kind of hope to do, which is be a really, really annoying, tough team to play against. But Carolina is able to sustain it for all 82 games, and have that ridiculous, great regular season record, whereas the Islanders don't really do that. The Islanders are more of like, let's get in there and see what happens. So, yeah. So, all right, pretty much in agreement there. Atlantic, I guess we'll stay there. This is the division that I have gone out and made some iffy picks.
Yeah.
1, Maple Leafs. Feel like that one's fairly easy. 2, Sabres. 3, Bruins. 4, Lightning. 5, Panthers. 6, Sens. 7, Red Wings. 8, Canadiens. So I had a real tough time. I hate making decisions. So it was really tough to actually pick out. For me, 3 teams in this division that made the playoffs last year got worse. You have the Lightning, who are older and have no Andre Vasilevsky now. That's a bit of a problem because Jonas Johansson is their guy now. That's a bit of a problem. Like they could figure this out. I expect them to. I don't think there's much they can do because of the cap until the regular season starts and they could put Vasilevsky on LTIR. But I think that's a slight problem. that there's no way they get Andre Vasilevsky level goaltending the first 2 months. Um, for the Panthers, the offense should be great. I don't know what we're going to see out of Bob. Spencer Knight's coming back from rehab. We'll see how he goes. I'm rooting for him. But the Panthers are missing their best 2 defensemen for a significant amount of time to start the year. Brandon Montour was amazing in the playoffs, and Aaron Ekblad. And so I'm kind of worried. It sounds like they're going to be out a while. Gustav Forsling has really blossomed for them, and I think Josh Mahura has been pretty decent. I'm really worried though that the Panthers are going to score a ton of goals, give up a lot of goals, and they might dig themselves into a bit of a hole until they get their defenseman back. And then with the Bruins, they lost their top 2 centers. It's kind of a big deal. So yeah, Sabres, I'm really depending on Devin Levi to be amazing, but I love that offense so much. So Sterling, what do you got?
Oh, I have quite the disagreeing list. Mine is Toronto at 1, Florida at 2, Boston at 3, and those are your playoff teams. Then Tampa at 4, Buffalo at 5, Ottawa at 6, Detroit at 7, and Montreal at 8. So I'll start with Buffalo because they're the most interesting, I think. I think last year I might have been caught up in their fan base's comments a bit too much because everyone's talking about how Devin Levi is the future and he's amazing. And yes, he's young and all of that, but like just objectively, I think he was sub 910 in the games he did play. And I think he had a decent sample size, like maybe 10 games or something. Granted, their goaltending wasn't great last year and they still almost made it, but whatever. The defense they brought in, we did talk about how they needed to get defenders. They did. Eric Johnson, I believe, was one. And okay. But what I'm most worried about is their offense. I don't know. Tage Thompson is amazing and whatever, but can some of the guys continue to be what they've been? Kyle Okposo is definitely taking a roster spot, and I don't know how old he is now, but I wonder how much guys like him decline. And I'm more impressed with some of the other teams. Florida, like, yes, their defense is going to be bad at the beginning, but I think they did a good job of getting enough washed up veterans to fill in the place. You know, they had Eric and Mark Stahl last year. They brought in guys like Oliver Ekman Larson, Dmitry Kulikov. So I think that'll stop the potential bleeding at the beginning of the year for them. And yes, Bob is what he is, so whatever. So I put them comfortably at second because Boston, they were in for a rough off season. I think they handled it very well. I mean, it looks like they're gonna ice an NHL caliber roster at least. And I know there were some guys who like I've never heard of before. Maybe their second line winger or center on forget what the website is, but it has the lines. But I think with their goaltending and some of their still offensive players, they should make it. So I put them in third. And okay, I'll talk one more team, Ottawa, right? That's the team that everyone says is making the playoffs every year. I don't like them at all. I don't like having Corpusalo be your starting goaltender. The Chikrin trade was fine last year, but losing to Brinket's gonna hurt. I like Dominic Kubalik. I don't think that fills the hole at all. And yeah, I mean, it's mainly the goaltending with them that I don't like. And then, yeah, everyone else just is bad. So, yeah.
I'm very glad that we agree with Ottawa. Like, Eunice Corpusalo is not I just did not like that signing. That was one of my least favorite signings of the offseason. And, the Lightning they're my wild card. And the Bruins, I think you made a good point. The Bruins goaltending should be good enough to, help them and make sure they still at least get in. because it would be a huge drop off from one of the best teams ever to not making the playoffs. So I didn't have the guts to pull them out. I think when I first kicked around predictions, I had Leafs, Sabres, Ottawa, and then I was like, no, that's too much. And I don't believe in Eunice Corposalo. I do believe in Devin Levi. I think you're right. His stats last year, he had a 905 save percentage, which on its face is not excellent. But you pointed out they brought in defensemen. I really like Connor Clifton, and they brought him in. I wanted Clifton to be our Mayfield replacement if we had gone that route. We didn't. So Buffalo gets a good one. All right, so that's fun. That was my fun. Yeah.
Yeah, one thing I completely forgot, I skipped over Tampa. They would have made the playoffs in my eyes, but with the Vasilevsky news, I was gonna put them as like a fringe playoff team. And they're losing him for 2 months. Like, even if you lose a couple more games than you're supposed to, you're done. So I don't see it happening at all.
It's a tough division to call because you have a few teams that are very clearly worse than they were last year. And then you have like teams on the ascendancy, like Ottawa could be better, and then the Sabres should be better. But there's a lot of moving parts in that division. The Leafs are lucky that on top of they should be the best team in that division by a decent margin, I think.
Yeah. Are you guys factoring in the fact that Josh Bailey might be playing for the Senators?
Well, of course.
So I mean, I feel like that's going to make it or break it if he's with them or not. It's just whether or not they can afford him is really the question, I think.
Yeah, I'll go with it's going to break them if they do put him in.
Yeah, they'll finish dead last if they not. All right. Do you want to do Pacific or Central next?
Pacific, I think, is pretty fun. Yeah.
Okay. I got the Oilers, Golden Knights, the Kings, the Kraken, the Flames, Canucks, Ducks, and Sharks. And I have. Oh, I shouldn't give anything away yet. Yeah, those are the teams I have. Go ahead. You go.
Okay. Yeah, that's another one that's pretty close to mine. So I have Edmonton #1, Vegas #2, maybe a surprise pick, Flames at 3, Kraken at 4, Kings at 5, and then the rest, frankly, doesn't matter to me. I'll go Canucks at 6, Ducks at 7, Sharks at 8.
Yeah, the only team in that bottom three that has any upside anyway is probably the Canucks. The Ducks have like intriguing young pieces, but I don't think it's anything contending. Yeah. I think I like your picks because I think the top two are pretty obvious with the Oilers and the Knights, and I think at least for me with the Knights, I think usually a little bit of a hangover from having to play that many games and shorter off season than everybody else. So and Mark Stone, like, can he stay healthy? So yeah, there's some worries there. In net, no more Robin. I mean, they didn't have Robin Leonard last year anyway, and it survived. So hopefully one of their goalies stays healthy this year. The Flames. I almost put the Flames at 3 too. I think there's big upside potential. They had a bunch of guys just like completely fall off the earth last year. All it takes is for them to get 50% back of what they were, and Markstrom to be good again, and they're back. The Kraken. You had the Kraken where at 5 or
4?
Okay, I had the Kraken there too. They're really exciting. I need their goaltending to be better before I like really hop on. Love Everly. And the Kings, I think their goaltending is not a great. It's Phoenix Copley is like their starter to start the year. Yeah. So I think it's completely defensible to put the Flames ahead of them. I like the Kings roster a little bit better, but yeah, I think the Kings like might want to get a little bit better in goal.
Yeah, I'm really high on some of the Flames guys who I think coaching is going to make a big difference. Obviously, I'm familiar with Jonathan Huberdeau and Islanders legend Nazem Kadri. So, yeah, I think they'll have good seasons this year. That's why I'm putting them after.
Yeah. All right. Central Division. I have the Stars, the Avalanche, the Wild, the Jets, the Blues, the Predators, the Yotes, and the Hawks. I have both of my wildcard teams in the Pacific. I have the Kraken and Flames as wildcard teams. So I do not have any wildcards in the Central.
Okay, yeah. So I know I made a low pick for the Kings at number 5. I do think that's a playoff team as well. So 3 for me in the Central. It's going to be Dallas, Colorado, and St. No, not St. Louis. Minnesota are the playoff teams. Then St. Louis, Nashville, Winnipeg, Chicago, Arizona. Um, I guess I have some explaining to do, I guess. Um, Nashville, I really like what Barry Trotz has done, redirectioning the team. But even though they have Saros, I don't think they're a playoff team yet. But I did have them, compared to some people, I guess pretty high. And then Winnipeg, I guess I might have had pretty low, but like I'm not too inspired at all. There's definitely some locker room stuff going around with them, with like Blake Wheeler suddenly leaving, and then Connor Hellebuck apparently wants out. So I don't know how good he's gonna play. So I'm not a fan of them really. And then Chicago is destined to be terrible, but I think they could beat out Arizona for sure if some of their more washed out guys become better. Like I don't know, maybe Seth Jones won't be terrible. And they do have some good pieces there if they revert back to their original form. Honestly, for the playoff teams, like it wasn't really that hard. Colorado, even though Landeskog is out, they'll be fine. Dallas looks really good. I love the Duchesne signing, so yes. And then Minnesota is going to be the perennial first round exit, I think. So yeah.
Yes, yes, they are. Yeah, it's tough because the two teams that the Stars and the Avs are fantastic, and then the Wild are just like, well, good luck. Like it's teams, you're gonna play one of those teams, and you're gonna lose to one of those teams. I guess a couple of very interesting goalies that we could see at some point this year in this division. Prospects, the Wild have Jesper Wallstedt. Who looks amazing. Very curious to see, if Marc-Andre Fleury struggles, gets hurt, retires, get to see him. I don't think that really changes their upside too much, but it's interesting to watch. And the Predators, Yaroslav Askarov, who I have in a dynasty league, so we better be good. That could be a really fun goalie tandem with Saros and him. So I had a tough time picking a spot for the Jets because of everything you said. Very like this team could finish sixth. I think. Do you have them at sixth?
I believe so, yeah.
I could see that. It's tough because the talent is there. Kyle Connor and Nikolai Ehlers and Mark Scheifele. They have so much scoring, and they have a great goalie. I don't love their defense. And just everybody seems to want to be out of there. All it takes is like them to start off kind of shitty, and we traded one of the big guys. Now, may as well trade them all. So that's tough. I probably should have put the Blues at 4. The Blues feel like if there's any of the teams that we didn't pick to make the playoffs in the West, I feel like the Blues are the most likely just because they have playoff quality in their lineup. They have an very old blue line. And Jordan Binnington is Mr. Poopy Pants. That's what I call him. Because, man, that guy is he just needs to calm down. He's such a hothead. His teammates look like they freaking hate him. And I would too. He's Mr. Poopy Head. Poopy Pants. Yeah. So that means pretty similar playoffs. The Atlantic, I figured was going to be because I figure we're going to look back at the Atlantic and I'm going to get like one of the playoff teams even right. Because took a big swing at that one this year. We'll see if I connect. Other than that, pretty similar. I feel like in the West, like, man, it almost feels like the 8 playoff teams are already set. I know it's dumb to say that because now it's not going to happen. But like, who? Like, maybe the Predators. Like, if the Predators goaltending, like if Askarov turns into God, and now, oh my God, they have 2 Ilya Sorokins on their team with Saros and Yaroslav Askarov. And I think you made a good point that like on the fly they seem to be rebuilding all right because Luke Evangelista was like a prospect they had was on fire at the end of the year. they seemed like they were trying to tank and they were still playing okay. Maybe a good sign for Trotz's future there. Um, yeah. Oh, do you have a Stanley Cup pick?
Okay, so I'll do conferences, right? So from the East, I'm gonna go. This is the year. I think we predicted this last year. This is the year Carolina is gonna not get swept in the conference final, and they are gonna make it. And then from the West, you know what? This is kind of an on the spot one. I didn't think about it too much, but it's time for Connor McDavid to finally live up to who he is and make a cup final. And yeah, I think they got it done this year. I think some of their moves that they made in previous years are going to start to pay off really well. Like it's only a matter of time before like Evander Kane, McDavid, Draisaitl, all three of them find chemistry in the postseason, and like Stuart Skinner isn't a terrible goalie, or Jack Campbell isn't a terrible goalie. And like their depth, people complain about it. I don't mind it too much, and I think the top end talent will carry them. We've seen they've played well in the playoffs before. It's just really the defense and goaltending, not so much the front top guys. But yeah, I think at some point it's just a numbers game. Like what we talk about with the Islanders is like one of these years, Sorokin is going to play like he did in that Penguin series in 2021. I think it's the same thing for a team like them, where one of these years, it's just going to click.
Hmm. Yeah. For me, in the West, man, I keep putting myself like future me is going to regret this. Very easily, I have the Stars, and I say easily, they will now get swept in the first round. The Stars roster is so well balanced. Duchesne is playing third line center. It's such a good team. Rupi Hintz is fantastic. Their blue line is fantastic. Essa Lindell, Miro Heiskanen. It's so good. The one thing I want them to improve a little bit is get a little bit better at backup goalie so that they don't have to run Jake Ottinger into the ground. And I think that's it. Like, other than that, oh my God, I love this team. So Stars in the West. In the East, I had a devilish thought just now. Not the Devils. I literally didn't even think of that pun. Because the devilish thought was putting the Leafs in the final. They might, who knows, the Atlantic part of the playoff bracket might be a cakewalk. If the Lightning are like just, starting to fall apart and they're just barely getting in, the Leafs already beat them last year. But I think I'm gonna follow your lead and pick Carolina. So Carolina and the Stars in the final. And give me the Stars. Give me the Stars to be your 2023-24 Stanley Cup champs. I literally just because Rob Brind'Amour was such a poor loser last year. We didn't get swept. You did. Yeah. Like, stop denying reality. You got swept by the 8th seed. How funny is that? Win a game in the conference finals. Yeah. I would love I like in like a hilarious world, the cup would be like Sabres Kraken. I would have such a great time with that. There'd be 1 billion goals scored, no goaltending in that series. Yeah, so I'm gonna say I'm rooting for Kraken Sabres to be the final. Or Flames Sabres.
Well, yeah, that's a good one. Obviously, besides the Islanders, teams I would cheer for are Edmonton, because I love watching them play due to their speed. And then in the East, okay, obviously no Florida either. I will go Buffalo too. It's about time they made the postseason. So how could you not cheer for them if they're not in direct conflict with us?
Yeah, absolutely. I feel like a lot of the teams that are going to make the playoffs in the East are teams we hate anyway. I feel like the
Yeah.
same. So like, hey, let's go. I mean, it was kind of like last year. Like the Panthers, I had fun rooting for them. It was a good run. It was a lot of fun. And there were like no other teams I was going to root for.
Yeah.
Not a historical rivalry between the Islanders and Panthers. All right, so we got through it. Our first show of the year. I guess to kind of leave everybody with some excitement, like we're kicking around the idea of like doing a few different things this year. I am really, really, really trying to get back onto the every game recap grind. We'll see. With my job, I work some nights. I already know that I'm going to miss what was going to be the first game of my season ticket package this year for a wedding in California. So, but yeah, really, we're kicking around some fun ideas. Maybe a live stream of a game at some point. The NHL will sue us. No, we won't. We'll just talk about it. Yeah, and maybe some stories. We're thinking about some stories of like some fun games we've been to, some fun moments, maybe some player interactions. I met Simon Holmstrom. I don't know if I mentioned that, and that's about it. So that's it. That's anything else you guys want to add?
Game one is next Saturday, I believe. So get ready. The Matt Martin can he score 20 points challenge starts then.
Exciting. All right, and that's a good point to leave off on. We're gonna try to do. I think we said Wednesdays and Thursdays filming this year. We're working around 3 schedules, so we're gonna try to do that. And so you can kind of expect the beginning of the weekend to like Friday, Saturday to be when stuff starts coming out. Just for an idea of when that will be coming out. So that's that. I won't do what all the video game companies do now and put out a roadmap that we'll get wrong in week 1. I'm not Cyberpunk. But yeah, I'm excited. We'll be doing different things this year.
I'm excited too.
That's good.
Yeah.
Excitement level for Belmont Bunch is at 10.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's that high. 7, 6. 6 on a good day.
Yeah.
So
the first episode, it was a 10.
Yeah.
Yeah.
With the curve. So anyway, thank you so much, everybody, for watching. And we will see you next time.
Bye.